Welcome back. Another episode of Channel 914. I'm your host, as always, Rail Allen. And this week, I'll be talking about the most valuable thing that any of us possess. Even though you never really possess it, you can't hold it, you can't grab it, you can spend it. I'm beginning to sound like a fucking riddle. Talking about time, man, the most valuable resource that we have. The average lifespan of a human being is 4,000 weeks, right? Now, with diet, exercise, you may be able to extend that out by a few months, but it could just as easily be cut short if you get sick, disease, or any number of factors can cut your time drastically short, right? But on average, you get 4,000 weeks. That's it. Time is money is a phrase that all of us have heard. We hear it all the fucking time still, especially as adults. And considering what industry you work in, you might hear it more than most, right? Now, on its face, this phrase would suggest that time and money are equivalent, right? But when you really think about it, man, time is far more valuable than money could ever be when you really, really think about that. Value is placed on most things based on its scarcity, right? The less of something there is, the more valuable it becomes, right? So if you apply this logic to that time versus money, then you can pretty much be made clear the time is much more valuable, right? You lose money, you can always get it back, right? You can do all types of things to get money, man. You can negotiate raises, you can get another job, you can change your profession, you can sell products, man. You can get a side hustle, you can invest your money, you can even steal that shit from people, right? None of that applies to time. You can't take time from other people. You can't do anything to gain more time. You can't bank some time. I'm gonna save me some hours so I can use this on the back end, or I can use this for another day when it's more advantageous to you. None of that's available to you. Once the time is gone, once you've spent whatever time doing whatever it is that you're doing, you'll never get that back. Same can be said for money. So by that logic, you can easily see time is way more valuable. Now, research shows that people who value their time over money enjoy a greater overall well-being. They're not as focused on the pursuit of the money, right? So they won't just do anything, and they won't spend all of their hours, all of their time just trying to get money. They realize that their time is much more valuable and done doing other pursuits of things that actually make them happy, that they actually enjoy. And in this world that we live in, thanks to capitalism mostly, that's not something that, for one, a lot of us are afforded to do, right? Let's put that into perspective. A lot of people don't have the luxury to pursue things that make them happy, right? A lot of people have to devote a lot of their time to getting money just to really survive, to support their families, to support themselves. People are working 2-3 jobs, working overtime, and still only making ends meet. So that makes it a lot harder for people to really allocate their time and the value of their time, because they're just scratching and surviving, man. That's a lot of us out here, especially in these last few years where the cost of living has increased exponentially, man. So many things, the price of things have always constantly gone up. We have so many factors. The war in Ukraine has caused oil prices to rise up, which has placed a lot of that money has been passed on. A lot of that cost increase, I should say, has been passed on to what we pay for in goods and services, because a lot of those things are transported. Everything uses oil, right? So when the price of that goes up, mostly everything else goes up. A lot of people, quite honestly, are trying to get their money back from the pandemic. So much money was pumped into the economy during that time, and then like, all these stimulus packages and PPP loans, there was so much extra money pumped into the economy that a lot of companies saw this as the opportunity to raise prices, and none of that stuff is evened out. All of this stuff is things we're still feeling, and with all that money being gone, but those prices ain't came down. So all of that contributes to the average person not really being able to do those things and make them happy, or to allocate their time in ways that would be more advantageous to them. A lot of that changed in the form of working from home, right? Because of the pandemic also, we were shut in, we couldn't go outside for a while. So remote work became a thing for pretty much everybody. Obviously, you had your essential workers, people that had to be outside, that had to go to work during that time. They have jobs that don't lend themselves to working from home. But for most of us, the non-essential workers, we were all at home, with our laptops in our houses, and for a while, being able to stay inside the whole time, they drove a lot of people a little crazy. But over time, once we were allowed to at least go outside, for leisure, when it wasn't the fear of imminent death if we went outside, people began to realize how much of a work-life balance that you really could achieve by working from home. You didn't realize how much time it took just to get to work. The average American spends almost 30 minutes one way just traveling to work. For a lot of people, that's more. So you think about it, 30 minutes one way, going there and coming home, that's an hour, right? And that's not included the time you spend getting ready for work in the morning, preparing yourself, picking out clothes, bathing, brushing your teeth, all that stuff, your ritual before, all that stuff that you have to do before you get to work, getting your coffee, getting your breakfast, all of these things that you were doing on the go on your way to work, you're now doing at home, right? So basically, before you had to wake up to 6 a.m. to get ready and do all that stuff, be at work by 8:30. Now, shit, you rolling out of bed 7:50, you know what I'm saying? Washing your face, brushing your teeth, going to, and if you're even doing that, I know a lot of people, and I'm not even gonna sit here and lie and say I was every morning before I start work, I was washing my face and brushing my teeth, because I fucking wasn't. But it drastically cut down on the time that people had to dedicate to work, which left them for more time for themselves, to be able to be with their families, to do things that they actually like to do, to more leisurely activities, more hobbies. A lot of people started fucking podcasts, because they just had this extra time to use as they saw fit. And for a lot of people, man, it really made them enjoy work a lot more. But now, a lot of CEOs are like, fuck that shit. We need y'all motherfuckers to come back in to work. And it is presented under the guise of people are not as productive at home as they are in the office, right? Feel like people are just at home, getting drunk during work hours, not doing shit. Like you supposed to be actually doing work, but you on the couch playing PlayStation, you sitting out at the beach, having a good fucking time. But a lot of that isn't necessarily true. Now, obviously, there are some people, like, everybody's not a full adult. Some people need to be monitored constantly. Some people need to be checked on. Some people aren't responsible enough to be able to left by themselves and to do the work and be trusted to do that work. But those are few and far between, right? Most people working from home actually became more productive, myself being one of them, right? And research suggests that. Now, regardless of the fact that a lot of CEOs and people that are big proponents of returning to work will tell you, There was a study done by Stanford University that found that workers that work remotely are actually 13% more productive than their in-office counterparts. The report shows that remote workers are less likely to take sick days and are more likely to be satisfied with their jobs. So if you're overall happier, then that's going to show in everything that you do. And if you're allowed the flexibility to work from home and have more of your time being your own instead of just being dedicated to sitting in an office for 8-9 hours a day, you're going to be more enjoyable, right? You're going to do more things. You're going to have more fun. And still be an adult and get your work done. And not have to worry about somebody like, hovering over you or having to see people that you don't like, being forced to have social interactions and have conversations with people that you work with in the office that you really wouldn't talk to otherwise, right? Taking energy away from you, as opposed to like in home, you're able to just really focus on your work, do what you need to do, and interact with the people that you want to interact with. I mean, outside of Zoom calls, you got to do those, But most of the time, Zoom calls, you don't even really have to have pants on. Most people don't. You just got to be dressed from the neck up, right? Nobody sees what you have on here. Now, you got to be careful because there have been instances where people then got up and forgot their camera was on, or forgot they didn't have pants on and showed people more than they wanted to see. But for the most part, Zoom meetings are pretty low key. And you can always shut your camera off and do what you need to do, especially in meetings you ain't got to pay attention to. We all know the drill. But the important thing is people are still getting their work done. But obviously, a lot of people don't believe that. So, what was I going to say? So, Bob Iger is the former and now, again, CEO of Disney. One company that said that they were going to let people work from home forever has now backtracked on that. And one of his first orders of business when he became CEO again was to bring back workers in the office 4 days a week, right? Starbucks interim CEO Howard Schultz was very displeased that employees disregarded his return to office memo. He's basically encouraging people like, hey, y'all need to come back. And people were just like, yeah, all right, whatever. So now he's like, okay, now it's mandatory. So he made it mandatory that people come in at least 3 days a week. Elon Musk, who really is like a fucking supervillain, right? Like, I mean, everybody saw him as like this genius, he got the Teslas, electric cars, all this shit. He building rockets to space. But the more and more his public persona has increased, the more you see him as just like a fucking dick. You know what I'm saying? He out here challenging Mark Zuckerberg to MMA fights and all types of other wild shit. But either way, so he was already mandating that anybody that works for Tesla, you got to come in the office. Ain't none of that working from home. Basically saying that people are sitting at home, not doing anything, they're not really working. But, of course, we all know that he acquired Twitter, which is now called X, which is really fucking weird. But once he acquired Twitter, he immediately put an end to former CEO Jack Dorsey's pledges to allow workers at all the social media platforms to work remotely forever. So he came in and just deaded all that shit. Like where before they were promised, you're never going to have to come back into the office. He came in and was just like, actually, I'm going to need y'all in here 5 days a week. He's very skeptical of people working from home. Said like all the COVID stay-at-home stuff has tricked people into thinking that you don't actually need to work hard. Once again, insinuating that people that work from home are just sitting at home doing nothing. They're not working, right? Whereas I feel like it's pretty easy to see if people aren't doing their work. Regardless if they're working from home or not. The work is getting done. Who really gives a fuck where you are, right? Now, a lot of this data doesn't match up. Now, a lot of the CEOs will tell you that they're not doing anything, that people aren't working, that people are just taking advantage of this stuff and they're not actually being productive. But other studies show the actual metrics are that people are more productive. And not only are they more productive, they're happier. So I have a personal story in regards to this. There's one thing that I've learned probably more than anything in these past few years, is that time is precious. You never know how much you have. You never know when things are going to change. And I was really, really reminded of that this year. Back in March, a few months ago, or 6 months ago now, a little over 6 months ago now, time flies. I got a new job. I've mentioned this before in a couple of different ways, but I got a new job back in March. I wasn't really looking for it. I was actually pretty happy at my last place, but I work in tech, and a recruiter hit me up. And if you work in tech, you know recruiters are kind of always looking for people. There are always tech jobs available. So tech recruiters are kind of always just putting feelers out there, hitting people up, checking resumes, all that other stuff, giving calls when positions are open. So I would get calls from recruiters pretty often. And most of the time, I'm just like, nah, I'm okay. I'm pretty happy where I am. I always just kind of held steadfast that it would take a pretty substantial increase for me to leave where I am because I'm happy. And lo and behold, somebody came along with a substantial increase. And I really, in good conscience, could not turn it down. It was just the biggest increase I've ever had in my life, by far. So the only thing was, with my last job, I was 100% remote. I only had to go in the office when absolutely necessary, like if something broke, if something I had to actually go in. And even then, when I would go in, I would pretty much, hey, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I live close enough to where I could be back home in like 15 minutes. So I would do what I need to do, and I would go back home, finish up my workday. So I hadn't spent a full day in the office just because in about 5 years. I first got I got a promotion back in 2018. So prior to that, I was going to the office 5 days a week. I was fortunate enough to get a promotion back in 2018, and that once that happened, I only had to be in the office 1 day a week. And I remember when I first got that, and I was so conditioned to being in the office that I thought that, I'm still going to come in. I'll probably work from home every now and then, but I'm going to go in the office. Well, let me tell you this. After that first week of working from home, I'm like, shit, go in the office for what? I ain't doing that shit unless I absolutely have to. I didn't realize how much time I took out of my day just getting ready and going to work. You know what I'm saying? Even the night before, just you thinking about, what am I going to wear tomorrow? What am I going to put on? Do I have clothes? Do I have clean clothes? Shit, I need to fucking wash. You know what I'm saying? Now I got to do that. Like, there was so much centered around the act of just getting to work. And you don't really realize how much time that takes and how much energy it takes until you don't have to do it anymore. Also, I became a better parent. I had more time and flexibility in my schedule to take my kid to school, to pick her up from school, to go to school events, or just random days where if my kid wasn't feeling well or something happened, I could go pick her up. And these are things that I couldn't do before unless I made special arrangements or I had to leave work or anything like that. And all that stuff would take extra time. Whereas when I was working remotely, shit, as long as I got my laptop and my hotspot, I'm good anywhere. I'm working from wherever. And that type of freedom in terms of your time can't be quantified with money. And I appreciated it while I had it, but I did not fully understand it until it was limited again and I had to go back into the office mandatory 3 days a week. Now, when I was first presented with this, I still have my 2 days a week, which I'm very thankful for, and I have flexibility to which days I'm not fixed on which days, right? I can move them around as needed. But I'm thinking to myself, 3 days a week, that's not bad. I can, you know what I'm saying? At least I still got my 2. But once I started actually doing it, I was like, man, this shit sucks. You know what I'm saying? And it's like because I didn't have to just sit in an office. The only time I was there was when I actually needed to be. So then you realize just how nonsensical it can be, right? Where like the same thing I'm doing at home, I'm doing in the office. But instead of like being at home, working in my workstation, or if I want to move to my couch, if I want to, I don't know, go sit at a cafe or go get lunch and bring my laptop and work outside, or just the ability to change my environment as I saw fit is gone. I got to sit here at this fucking cube, sitting around these people, you know what I'm saying, that I don't know, that don't particularly also care for. Now, obviously, I've gotten to know more of my coworkers now, and they're cool. But it's still like, bro, why am I here? What is the point of this? Like, I'm just as productive, a lot of times more productive at home because I'm more comfortable. I'm less distracted. I don't have to interact with people. There's no chance of somebody coming in my desk or doing anything like that. Or I'm less inclined to really just walk around because I need to get up and not be at my desk for a second. As opposed to when I'm at home, I'm comfortable. I'm working. I can lock in, right? And it's not just that. It's just now I don't have that freedom of time. My time has been more monopolized or more accounted for by my job, right? So a lot of the free time that I had, the flexibility to do other things, to work other places, if I need to like take my lunch and go to a doctor's appointment or go get a fucking oil change or any of those things, now is less of a possibility, which is more relegated to weekends and all that other stuff, which just limits my time that I have to do the things that I actually would enjoy doing or be more fruitful to my existence. Now it's being sucked up by my job again. And it's something that I've wrestled with. Now, do I regret taking this job? Absolutely not. Because once again, it was more money than I couldn't walk away from it. I had to do it. Well, I shouldn't say have to, but I would have been kicking myself if I didn't, right? And I didn't have the perspective then that I have now. So I appreciate the perspective that I've gained because of this. But the fact of the matter is, man, time is so much more valuable than money. And that's the main thing I've learned from this, is that yes, I have way more money, and it's allowed me a level of comfortability that I had not experienced prior to this, which I'm very thankful for, very appreciative of. But I've had to sacrifice so much of my time to achieve it. And being in hindsight, I would still do it all over again, but I would just have a better understanding of what I'd be giving up. And the fact of the matter is, even though I make more money now, I was less stressed and happier before. And that's just a fact of it. And there's no amount of money that's really going to replace the time that you spend. And so you can never say that time is money, because time is not money. Time is time. Time is the most valuable thing that you'll ever have, that you'll ever possess. And we need to really treat that as such. And I know the next time I'm presented with an option, I'm going to think a lot harder about my flexibility and my freedom of time. I didn't realize how much I was going to miss it. And that's not to give the impression, like I said, that, I mean, you can talk to my ex-bosses, anybody that I work with. I was never hard to find. I wasn't fucking off. My work was still done. I was still a fucking model employee, right? But I also had my freedom. I was able to do my things. I was able to dedicate more time to doing this, and I had to find my rhythm again with doing all these things that I love, with having to dedicate more time to being at work. And it just seems like for a lot of these CEOs, and this is pure conjecture on my part, I don't have any sort of actual factual things to back this up. These are just things that I think, things that I feel. I feel like a lot of these CEOs, they know that. And they know that people are happier working from home. And it's almost like if people are happier and they have more freedom, then they feel like they have more choices. So maybe they might move around a little bit more. Maybe they might demand more, right? And it's like, if you are forced to be in an office, which means you have less time, means you have less freedom, which most of the time, especially the people that have experienced the work from home and now are forced to go back, it's a sore spot. They're not as happy, and in an instance, they're not going to be as productive, but they're also not going to feel like they have as many choices. And I know there are other components to it. There's corporate real estate. People are paying leases, buying spaces and paying for spaces that are going largely unused. But there are also a lot of companies that have gone completely remote. As of 2023 in America, about 16% of companies are completely fully remote. They don't have a physical office anywhere. There's another industry that sprouted up. There was already a thing, but it's become more of a thing now in terms of shared workspaces, where like, okay, we don't necessarily have to have a physical office, but we can come into this shared workspace as needed. If we need to have a corporate retreat, or we all need to have a meeting, we need to be face to face, well, we can come to this place and we can just pay for this one-time fee and not have to worry about it again. There are other things around it, but for a lot of other people, that's not really an option, and it is not as profitable for them, right? And especially for people that work in corporate real estate that have made money for years leasing office space. But a lot of it for me, man, just seems like they don't want people to be happy. They want to monopolize time. They don't want you to feel like you have freedom of choice. A lot of these CEOs have been pretty brazen with the shit they've said. Like, people have literally said it's not a choice that they have. You don't have that freedom to do. If you want you to come back to work, if we tell you to come back to work, then you have to come to work. And if not, you're going to be fired. Namely, Elon Musk has said just that. If you want to work here, if you want to keep your job, you're going to be in the office, regardless if you've been working fine from home. But we don't want that. We want you in. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I feel like for most people, for most companies, the 5-day work week isn't going to work anymore. Just because people have gotten too used to being able to have the flexibility of at least a couple of days of working from home. As of right now, and this is global, about 28.2% work a hybrid model, meaning they have to come into the office about 2 or 3 days out of the week. So only 12.7% at this point work completely remote. Like they always work from home and they don't ever have to come into the office. So that's still a small number. But there are a lot of people that work, when you combine the people that work full time from home and work a hybrid model, I mean, you're getting pretty close to 50%, right? You're about 40, a little over 40%, but that's still a good percentage. That could go down, it could go up. We'll see, but just know that time is valuable. They know it, and you should know it too. So operate from that space of knowing that money isn't everything. Time is much more important. So focus more on how you spend your time as opposed to how you're going to use that time to get money. Now, obviously, money is important. We can't live without it. We have to have it. But it's not the end all be all. And we can't sacrifice so much of our time to get money. I mean, I know plenty of people, and I know anybody out there, you've all heard of people that have just worked crazy hours, and they may have a lot of money, but they never really have the time to enjoy it. You barely even have time to spend the money that you earn, right? So if you spend all of your time making the money, but you don't really even get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, what's really the point, right? Really got to think about that. But in closing, having to go into the office is bullshit. Yeah, I hate it. I don't see the point in it. I do it because I have to. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, I can get to the point where I can go back fully remote and I can do my work and still allocate my time as I need to. Now, obviously, there's always going to be a lot of time that I have to dedicate to work and to doing work, right? But at least at that point, I'll have more freedom to use that time that I would use commuting or getting ready for work, getting home from work, winding down from work, being tired because I was in the office, and doing more time doing shit I love, like talking to y'all, creating podcasts and content and shit. But yeah, man. But that is going to do it for this week in this episode of Channel 914. As always, I appreciate you guys locking in with me, watching my show, supporting, liking, sharing, commenting. Like I always say, you could be watching anything else. There's so much more content out there, so many things you could be looking at. But you choose to look at mine. And I am always thankful for that. So until next time, peace.